Episode number 254, Virtual Worship Experiences for Kids and Families with Erick Goss. Let's do it.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
This is the Making Sunday Happen podcast, where we help you transform the worship experiences at your church, from first impressions, worship, production, volunteers, teaching, all aspects of the worship experience we cover on this podcast. This week's episode of our show is brought to you by Minno, and Minno is an online subscription-based streaming media provider. They specialize in Christian programming for children. It's a great platform of content for your kids' worship experiences as well as families in your church too. They also have fantastic church-at-home virtual worship experiences for your kids' worship. You can check them out today at gominno.com. That's GOMINNO.com, gominno.com. Today on the podcast, I welcome the CEO of Minno, Erick Goss, to the show. Now, as I'll mention in the interview, Erick is a former Amazon marketing executive. He worked directly under Jeff Bezos, and he played a key role in the very first Amazon ebook and print demand business. So if you've ever purchased an ebook on Amazon, Erick's team created the platform to do that. Pretty amazing. He now serves as the CEO of Minno, and Minno has done a great job of curating media content and programming and producing church-at-home worship experiences for your online kids services. It's a great resource for kids and families. You can check them out. We'll learn all about it today, and as well as how to craft that kids' worship experience and some ideas and tricks to reach the kids and families in your church. All right, so today I'm going to talk with Erick all about that, how to have some great online content to make Sunday happen for your kids and your families at your church. My conversation with Erick is coming up right after this.
It's Minno Church at Home! Experience the always awesome love of Jesus. There's a new episode every week with worship time, Bible stories, off-screen activities, and more. Join us every Sunday on Minno.
Hey guys, today I welcome Erick Goss. Erick is a former Amazon marketing executive. He played a key role in the introduction of Amazon's first ebook and print-on-demand business. He currently serves as the CEO of Minno. Now, Minno is an online subscription-based streaming media provider, and it specializes in Christian programming for children. Erick, welcome to the podcast, man. Thanks so much for hanging out.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
Now, in your bio, I read a little bit about your experience with Amazon. Now, you were involved in the very first Amazon ebook. So you got to give me the story, man. That's just too intriguing.
Yeah, so I grew up in Kentucky in a small podunk town, and ended up going to Naval Academy. Was in the Navy for 7 years, flew helicopters, and then had a chance to go to business school in Michigan, and then head out to Amazon. And probably within the first 6 months that I was at Amazon, this was probably in 2000, they were like, we need to figure out what we want to do with ebooks and print on demand. I didn't know anything about either one of them. And they said, hey, just go figure this out. At the time, granted, today Amazon's a behemoth, but at the time everybody thought Amazon was going to go bankrupt and go out of business. And they're
Boy, were they wrong.
They were wrong. There are about 300 people at corporate. And so, you kind of knew everybody. And it was a great time to be there because so many of the things that we were trying to figure out, no one had ever figured out before. Wow. And so it's like, Erick, go figure this out. And I'm like, okay, I'll go figure it out. And so it was just a huge opportunity. I mean, the Lord gave me so many great opportunities that are really career defining, I think, in being at Amazon and diving into that. And, I've had the privilege of being chewed out by Jeff Bezos a couple of times, which is awesome.
What an honor.
And so many of the people that I was working with that I could call peers and colleagues are either running Amazon or Facebook or Google today. So it was a really extraordinary time.
That's awesome, man. Well, how did your time at Amazon prepare you for your career path and what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, there are a couple of things about Amazon that I think are really unique and special. One is just customer obsession. Like, what does it mean to serve the customer and to really go the extra mile to serve customers and really, build delight into their lives? And the second is, what does it mean to use data to measure everything? So, I'd say most people who come into our company are always a bit shocked and amazed at how much we measure and how rigorous we are. Because, if you can't, it's really what I call kind of thinking digitally. And so in a digital culture, everything can be instrumented and you can basically see what customers are doing and how we can make things better. Because it's very clear when you're building obstacles in the way of customers trying to get stuff done. And then the other is, what's excellence mean? Because I think it's very easy to get comfortable. And at Amazon, we always talked about raising the bar, both from staffing, but then also what we were doing for standards. And so, so much of what I wanted to do with Minno is take those learnings of what I consider to be, world-class digital culture, and then infuse that with what does it mean to combine that with the kingdom of God. Yeah. And so, one of the challenges as a manager there is, as a Christian, you can feel like you're living a little bit of a split life or a dichotomous life. And so, part of this is, what does it mean to take all this stuff and see it through a redeemed lens? And that's really kind of what we're trying to accomplish at Minno, is take that world-class expertise and excellence from Amazon and then really bring that to the kingdom of God in use of the advancing of the gospel.
So I'm going to ask you a random question. So if you were to give any advice to an entrepreneur starting a business, whether that's a Christian faith-based or not, what's one or two things that you are like, if you could focus on this with the customer, that's where you need to focus on?
Well,
like how to serve them better.
Yeah, so I am a big fan. There's a writer and thinker by the name of Clayton Christensen who basically says customers hire companies to do jobs for them. And what I find is oftentimes entrepreneurs get very passionate about their ideas without asking, does a customer actually want this job done in their life? And so, the advice I would give is make sure you understand what jobs the customer is wanting done. And then the other thing is, make sure that you're solving the most valuable job for the customer, because oftentimes entrepreneurs can, again, get locked in on what they want to do when there are actually more valuable jobs to be done. And so, and I'd say spend time with customers, because again, in a digital world, it's very easy to look at Google Analytics or look at web metrics. Nothing beats being in front of a customer and having to ask questions and deal with the anxiety of, oh, they don't really like what I'm talking about. Right. I've had those awkward conversations, but they're the best and most memorable and the most informative in what we do and what drive us today.
Does Amazon have toilet paper in stock? That's what I want to know right now.
Don't know. Been a long time since I've been a buying manager at Amazon.
Man, who would have thought the last couple of months what we were ordering. All right, I wanted to have you on the show because I want to talk about some ways that churches can make Sunday happen, especially for kids and families. So what you guys are doing at Minno really provides churches and parents with some fantastic programming that can be viewed both in the setting of a church context as well as at home, right? So kind of give me an overview of Minno and what you guys are really trying to accomplish there.
Yeah, so Minno can serve the church in a couple of ways. And so when we talk about Minno, we talk about our streaming platform, Minno Kids, which is basically a subscription video on demand platform, sort of like Netflix or Disney Plus for Christian kids. And so we have a huge catalog there. That's a monthly subscription that we offer a free trial to. We have a children's publishing division where we're probably our most popular book or best-selling book is the Minno Laugh and Grow Bible, which was written by Phil Vischer. That's probably, well, it's the fastest selling children's Bible, I think, in the history of Christian publishing over the last 20 years.
Wow.
And so like we're 2x time, we've sold twice as many as kind of the next best selling Bible out of the gate. And then the third is Minno Life, which are parent resources to really help parents understand, what does it mean to raise the next generation of Christians, because it's really confusing. And so we want to provide resources both for children's ministers, and so people who are looking for resources, but also to kind of extend the church's reach. But the fourth thing that we do, which is new due to COVID, is we've launched a free resource called Minno Church at Home,
Yes.
which is really trying to take our Bible videos and our worship videos and make those available to the church and make those available to families free of charge. That was really rooted, the idea of that was really rooted in my experiences as a church planner. I've been involved in planning 2 churches, and it's so tough when you're a young church because you've got, you hardly have any resources, period.
Mm-hmm.
And then the key issue is, what can we do to have great resources for our children's ministry?
Yes.
And so what we wanted to do was take sort of the best of Minno and make that available to families and churches so they could have that resource to really extend their ministry during this time of the pandemic.
How have you seen churches use it on let's say on a Sunday, or how have you seen them take advantage of the Church at Home series?
Yeah, so for for a lot of small to mid-sized churches, they don't have the resources to actually do an online version of church, and so they really are challenged. And so what they've done is they basically have taken a look at Minno Church at Home, which is a combination of a 30-minute video that we put together for every Sunday, that's got a combination of worship, Bible, and prayer. And then we have a downloadable chapter of the Minno Bible. So people can download that, have coloring pages, and then we have a bunch of activity sheets and free access to the Minno 5-minute family devotion. And so churches are using that, saying, hey, we've got some supplemental resources that are part of kind of our ongoing curriculum that we want to make available to you. But we also have this resource of Minno Church at Home, so you can sit and watch this with your kids, or your kids can actually watch this while you're streaming the grown-up service at home.
Right.
And so those have been how we've seen people use it. We've had, I think, probably close to 250,000 people use it in over 140 countries. Since we launched it in mid-March. And so it's been really remarkable. We had no idea that we'd see that many people use it.
Yeah.
But it's been, parents are either using it and churches are using it for Sunday, but then also we know churches are actually recommending to use it supplementally. So like on a Wednesday night, some of the larger churches who have the resources to do a Sunday experience, what they're encouraging families to do is if there's a Wednesday night enrichment program, they're using Minno Church at Home on Wednesday nights.
Great. You mentioned that the service is kind of like the Minno Kids is kind of like a Disney Plus or kind of a Netflix. Give me the difference of the two. So why would I choose a Minno Kids over the kids programming on Netflix?
Yeah, so first the programming on Netflix and Disney is fantastic. Disney's got about a 70-year head start on everybody when it comes to building out a catalog. The unique thing about Minno is the majority of our content is explicitly Christian. You won't find Christian content on Netflix or on Disney Plus. And then the content that's not explicitly Christian, we've got a small fraction of our catalog that's not explicitly Christian. It's been curated from a Christian point of view to be consistent with a Christian worldview, and reviewed by Christian parents to make sure this is appropriate. And so our mission is what can we do to delight and disciple kids, and to really help raise up the next generation of kids. I don't think that's Netflix or Disney Plus's mission.
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to be the big difference between the platforms. And what we say is, people talk about Minno being faith and family friendly. We say it's God friendly, where references to God on Netflix and Disney are not necessarily in the most favorable light.
Right. I read a stat on your website, and please correct me if this is wrong, but even when Disney content was still on Netflix, less than 1% of content on that streaming service, Netflix, was G-rated.
Yeah.
And even a smaller number was faith-based. Is that
Yeah.
right? Less than
Yeah.
1% was G-rated?
Yeah. Yeah. And what a lot of people have a tendency to, well, because I'm in the business. And so, I've been at Amazon and now I'm at Minno. Those platforms are made for grown-ups, but kids content is what keeps people subscribing. It keeps them it's the daily utility. So, Netflix and Disney, the kids content's super important for families because mom and dad may watch, occasionally on a weekly basis, but kids watch on a daily basis. Part of the challenge is the people who are selecting those programs don't necessarily have the values of people who are going to church all the time.
Right.
And so what's appropriate for them from a worldview standpoint and from a content standpoint, they are making decisions on behalf of your family. And so, I even struggle with this because, we use Netflix, we have Disney Plus. There's a sense that, we are seeing a catalog with the sensibilities of a certain type of person. And, and I know the guy, like I meet the teams that are leading these companies at children's conferences, mainstream children's conferences. And, when you see Netflix Kids, it's kind of whose kids? And is this appropriate?
Right.
At what age is it appropriate? And so they're making decisions based on their value system.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's just not that much content there. And then it's really easy. I mean, what's so difficult is these are such huge catalogs and there's so much automation in place. You just can't guarantee that your child's not going to come across something that you're going to feel uncomfortable with.
That's correct. I'll give you an example of a name of a show that I think Netflix had. It was called Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, and it's a spinoff of Mr. Rogers, and it uses the same. Well, we started seeing, and parents can disagree with me here, but my wife and I started seeing some things that that's not. I don't know about that. I don't even know if that's consistent with Mr. Rogers.
Right.
And so, but it's subtle. And so the show might seem like it's, from, not even a worldview or doesn't, but then when you really listen, you're picking up content that you're like, I don't know. And so I love that you guys have this service where it's all, not only family friendly, but God friendly, like you say. So let me come at it from this angle. There might be an argument to be made of, well, that the quality is so good on Netflix and Disney Plus that sometimes the faith-based stuff, the cartoons are so cheesy and not well done. And what would you say to that from a quality to quality standpoint?
Yeah. So what's interesting is when you talk to kids evaluate quality on, is it funny? And does it do I enjoy it? Not really production values. Good. All the research says adults actually evaluate on production values. And and I don't know if you've talked to many folks who've sat through, the Disney, live action series, but, I think a lot of people would say the writing has got a little bit to be desired. It's
a little cheese factor there.
Little cheese factor there. And even though the production values are high, the writing may not necessarily be all that great.
Fair
and
enough.
So, and then, we've got, a lot of the animation studios that are building out animation for some of those platforms are similar studios that are actually animating shows for us. And again, we're in the process of bringing new shows on. So one of the major initiatives for us over the next few years is original content. But VeggieTales is probably the most popular show on our platform. And that's one of the best-selling cartoons of all time. But we've also got some other shows that are animated using 2D animation that's less expensive, but it's the same type of animation that you'll see on those platforms.
One thing that I love too is you guys have not only cartoons and things like that churches and parents can use, but you also have we actually have made a chunk of the content that is on Minno. Our ministry has with Seeds Family, everything from Seeds Family Worship. We've made all that. And then Yancey, we've made a lot of her lyric videos, and those live on Minno as well. So not just cartoons, but also some. I mean, I know that Seeds is word for word scripture songs, I know that Yancey is, I know we made them. They're quality, worship music and quality content that is, that's not just like a cartoon, but also is going to get scripture into kids and things like that. So you want to speak at that some?
Yeah, I think it's really important. You bring up a really good point. Kids are learners, and so they're curious about the world around them. And so, the question is, as a parent, what am I facilitating my child's curiosity in? And so when they see stuff on mainstream platforms, kids are going to be instantly curious about those things. When they see Yancey videos or they see Seeds Family Worship, they're going to have curiosity around those things. And so what I say is it creates a catalyst for conversation between parents and kids. Parents are desperate to have conversations about spiritual issues with their children. And oftentimes parents are looking for they're looking for their opening of when can I talk to my child about, Jesus or about the Bible? And what I find is that programming on Minno makes it really easy. It's what do you think of that? Or what do you think that was saying? And so it actually allows, it comes alongside and helps the parent do their job. And one of the things we talk about internally is what can we do to make parents heroes? What can we do to make children's pastor heroes? To basically give them the resource to allow them to do an awesome job.
Yeah, I agree with you. Both parents and children's ministers, it gives them I think it's a less awkward conversation. So if you can relate it to a character or, the little owl or the whatever character it is, hey, just like that character did this, sometimes when you do that, it definitely opens the door to conversation very easily. You mentioned your Laugh and Grow Bible some. I'd love to maybe talk through how churches can use that, especially when it comes to their kids' environment, their kids' worship experience, for their kids, maybe even both virtually and in person. I know that we can get a physical copy and send it to them, and you have pieces that are virtual. Talk to me about the Bible a little bit more and how churches and parents can use that.
Yeah, so there are a couple of ways that the Bible's being used. So one is churches are just buying it and using it in the Sunday school or for children's ministry. And granted, in the world of COVID, that's, they're not doing that, but typically before pre-COVID, they just buy the Bible. It's really hard to find a children's Bible that's comprehensive in the sense that it covers the whole Bible. Typically it's like greatest hits, the best of Bible stories. What's unique about the Minno Laugh and Grow Bible is Phil has done a great job. Phil Vischer, who created VeggieTales, he wrote it. First, it's really funny. So when we talk to kids, kids will actually say that they've read it themselves, independent of their parents, because they like to use it. But then the second is we've divided up into 52 Bible stories, and we talk about the Pentateuch. We talk about the Torah, we talk about Proverbs and Psalms, and that is for the purpose of being able to allow children to start getting kind of a grasp of the meta narrative of the Bible. And churches can use that on a weekly basis. Most churches have curriculum, and so they use this as supplemental. The other thing that they've been doing within a COVID world is a couple of churches actually use the Bible for Bible reading as a part of their videos that they're making available each week. Mm-hmm. And so they'll actually read the Bible and incorporate that in basically making their online lesson for kids. And then for Minno Church at Home, churches can download the PDF that we're providing. It's basically a chapter of the Bible, and then it also has a whole bunch of activity sheets and coloring sheets that they can distribute to their families.
Do you have so my kids, I have a 7 and 9-year-old, 2 boys, and they're really into what's in the Bible right now. And I thought, so we tried to get them into what's in the Bible when they were younger, but it's been amazing to me how they've picked it up when they're 7 and 9 and I think it's because it's so deep and it's so engages their mind. And I think that the Laugh and Grow Bible does the same thing in that, don't necessarily think as a parent, this is not going to fit my kid. You might be surprised. Like with me, I thought what's in the Bible, puppets, it's too young. Not the case. My kids are 7 and 9, and now's the sweet spot to get them into that. So you want to speak to that maybe you might be surprised at what would hit kids and kids worship in homes?
Yeah, well, the first is this principle that we tend to underestimate what kids can grasp and overestimate what adults can grasp. And so,
That's
I
true.
always share the story that when my eldest daughter actually watched the volume 1 of What's in the Bible in Genesis, we were driving down the road in the minivan. She's got type 1 diabetes, and she asked me, "Do I have type 1 diabetes because of original sin?" Just like totally out of the blue.
Whoa.
And yeah, I was like, whoa. And then we actually, there's a cemetery off to the left, and she said, so when I die and go to heaven, then I'm going to have a new body. Like, I'm going to be healed of my diabetes. And I was like practically in tears. And I was like, yes, that's true. And so, she was in kindergarten. And so she's picking up on these ideas. And so with What's in the Bible, we actually have adult small groups that have used What's in the Bible before, because it's like I actually think it's the best 13-hour introduction to the Bible that anyone can kind of experience.
It's almost too fast. Like, I'm like, hang on a second. I didn't get that. Hang on. Wait. And my kids are like, come on, Dad, let's go. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So, and with What's in the Bible, there's also a church curriculum that goes along with that's available. And so churches can use that. But with the Minno Laugh and Grow Bible, what's been interesting is it's sort of taking the content of What's in the Bible and really kind of mashing that into a children's Bible. Even though there's 52 Bible stories, at the end of those, there's a family connection. So we actually give prompts for parents for talk and prayer and share about the Bible story, just to kind of help. But the other thing is we've got kids who actually are taking the Bible and like reading the whole Bible in a day or two. Because they're so into it. To your point, that I think like we have a tendency to underestimate and underappreciate the curiosity of kids.
Mm-hmm.
And when you give them the tools to kind of go deep on something, church, the Bible, faith is a big part of their family's lives.
Yep.
And so when we give them the opportunity to go deep, the other thing is, what's God doing in their life? Like the thing I am always thinking is I need to create opportunities for my kids to bump into things for God to use.
Right.
And by getting kids, exposing kids to What's in the Bible and the Minno Bible, it really gives an opportunity for the Spirit to work in their hearts and in their lives.
That's awesome. Well, man, as we wrap today, let's kind of bring this back to churches and how if I'm a pastor, if I'm a leader, if I'm a children's pastor, if I'm a worship leader, like, tell me how I can use your content, both the Minno Kids service, the church at home. Tell me how I can package this and use it for my church, both virtually and then as we return to the building.
Yeah, so virtually, the single best way to work with Minno today is take advantage of our free Minno Church at Home, and go check out those resources. You'll see the video, you'll see the downloadable chapters from the Minno Bible, as well as a whole bunch of activity sheets. It's a great place to begin and take a look at what we have to offer. The other is there are resources on that Minno Church at Home. We have the Minno 5-Minute Family Devotional, which is a great way for families to basically have some devotional time, which and oftentimes is lacking during COVID because church has been the connection point for so many families to have spiritual practices. After Minno Church at Home, we've got the Minno Kids subscription. That subscription is a great resource in churches and classes. So you mentioned like What's in the Bible. So that's available on Minno Church at Home. There are a lot of worship videos on Minno Church at Home, which a lot of churches will actually use, at the beginning of class to get kids excited. There are actually not a lot of great worship resources. So like when you talk about Yancey's and Seed Family Worship, those are really great videos because there are just not a lot of those available in the marketplace. And so Minno can be a resource to be able to provide and aggregate and curate that content for children's pastors. And then we've got the Minno Bible, the Minno Laugh and Grow Bible that's available that children's pastors can make available to families as a resource to kind of extend what does it mean to help our families have a connection point with the biblical narrative.
Good. Awesome. Well, man, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you sharing this. And man, I'm really excited about churches using this and parents using this for discipleship and great content. You guys really choose it well. Like, I like how you're picky about the content that's on the platform and how, not only quality, but with great biblical values and a great worldview. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it, man.
Hey, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, I want to let you know about a great virtual conference for designers in ministry called Design Revival. It's hosted by my friend Alan Smith, who we recently had on the podcast. They are actually expanding the event to include more speakers online. Our team is going to be there teaching workshops. They'll also have some other great speakers that are lined up for this event. Great speakers, great workshops, great teaching from designers and communicators in the faith space. I want to encourage you to support guys like Alan who are leading conferences to help you win at your church. You can still get tickets for this year's event as it moves to online only. Just go to designrevival.ga to learn more. Designrevival.ga.
The show notes for this episode are available now at MAKINGSUNDAYHAPPEN.com.
Well, that is our show for this week. Thank you so much for listening and watching. I want to thank Erick Goss and the team at Minno for sponsoring our show this week. Be sure to check out their weekly Church at Home series for kids. Great for virtual kids worship experiences. Just go to gominno.com and you'll see a Church at Home Learn More button in the top right-hand corner of your browser window to check out the latest episode and also view past episodes completely free. gominno.com. All right, next week on the show, I'll welcome our creative director at 1230 Media. My friend Sean Reese will be on the show. Sean has decades of experience working with and for churches in the areas of communications, video, filmmaking, and more. So next week is going to be kind of a family episode. Sean and I are going to be talking about how your church can rebound after COVID-19. So what are some things to think about and where to go from here? That is next week on the show. Well, guys, go out there and create some incredible worship experiences this weekend. I'll catch you next week.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit MAKINGSUNDAYHAPPEN.com.